The next phase is Design Phase 4, Part 4. And this includes instructions for adjusting the location of the buttonhole, because the original pattern called for a button be placed according to the smaller pouch that didn't have sides. Once you add a side to it, you have to adjust that button and move it a little bit more outward. So that's what I'm going to be showing first, is how to take the hole and move it as far to the edge as possible without, having the hole show up. You still have to cover the other hole, and then you can move forward in actually installing the post and stud. So that's why I'm actually creating two different buttonholes. When you're creating a prototype for something, it's not uncommon to have to make adjustments or to do one step in the process out of alignment. It happens all the time because it's not a refined process. The whole point of pattern drafting is create a pattern, create a process that eventually is reproducible, and then you can streamline it and take something that took 2 weeks to make and try to make it in a day. That's kind of what you're shooting for. So here we go. Enjoy.
Here's the problem. This hole is way the crap down here. It's literally an inch away from the edge. So when you roll this over, this button's got to go all the way over to here in order to connect. See that? This buttonhole was designed for this originally, where you didn't have the pocket side to interfere with the button being punched. So you wanted it to go all the way across because it fit with the type of pouch you're doing. But now that I'm doing a side to the pouch, this button should go right to about here, about 1/2 inch out, no more. So right at that one is a little bit after the one. That's where this button should be, right there. Let's see, I decide to put the button right here. That is literally 1/4 of an inch further in. I can do this right now where I take my awl, if I can find it. It's the problem these days. Now this I'm going to do by eye, because I know that the distance from here to there is literally how far I want to go. I can literally do this by eye. I'm going to repunch the hole right there. And I place a hole. So now I'm going to have a new hole there. Just do the same thing on this side, where I'll put this right at the edge, like so. If you're really careful, you're right on. And I'll repunch the hole right there. So now I'm going to have a new hole for this. So you can see it. And I'm going to take my punch and I'm going to repunch it here. Right here. There we go. There we go. I now have a new hole for my button that will cover up the old hole. Just like so.
The bottom line here is I'm having to adjust the leather buttons because the post is too long. The problem you'll find out with leather buttons is they often make longer posts, so you can do multiple layers of leather and have it work. But if you have a smaller piece of leather, like I'm going to be using in the project I've been working on, you have to actually either grind down the tip of the post or cut grooves into the post so it'll bend over completely and seal the button. The ideal is to grind about an eighth of an inch off, but most people don't have a grinder to do that, so I'm just showing how to groove the post instead. So you can do one or the other. You can either grind off an eighth of an inch of the tip to make it shorter. You want the post to come right up to about what they call the stud. And when you go to put a lining in a project, you always do the studs, what they call the stud and the post first, and that's what I'm going to be showing you right now. The cap and what they call a socket goes after the fact. So here I'm preparing the post to be grooved with a Dremel. I have a little cutting blade, a very thin metal cutting blade on my Dremel, and I'm going to create just little cuts into the top of the post, as you can see here, so that when I use my really cheap setter, a cheap setter, the problem with them is they have machine grooves, and the machine grooves can catch on the actual top of the posts and not split properly, and that's unfortunately all I can afford. So I'm cutting grooves in it right now on both sides so that it'll split when I do the setting. Sorry, it got out of frame there for a second. But I'm just doing the same thing on both sides. And after you cut the grooves in, then you want to take some kind of a sandpaper and sand off whatever filing edges you might have, sharp edges. Otherwise, it won't go into the hole in the leather very well. So that's what I'm going to do now is I'm going to sanding the edges. What I'm sanding now is the posts. And what you see on that little, on the right side there is actually what they call the stud. And a post goes into the hole of the leather, and the stud fits over the top of it. And that actually goes on the main piece. And the back side of it will be under a lining if you decide to do a lining. So I'm just filing it so that it'll go smoothly into the hole. And then I've got the two pieces ready to go. Now, before, as you can see there, I have my two holes. The one there that I'm pointing at is the one I'm going to be using. It's the readjustment hole in order to account for the fact that I'm going to be doing sides in this. There you go. The post and the stud fits over the top. Then I'm going to take a setter and I will slide it into the center of the post like this. That's a cheap setter, unfortunately. They have little lines in it called machine grooves that cause it to not set as well as it should. A really good quality one doesn't have that. So right now I'm going to split the post. Sorry, I'm adjusting the camera here. Get a little bit closer. There you go. You can focus, focus. There you go. Just pushing the setter. That setter's a little bit big, or I should say small. The problem you run into if you're not careful is it'll fold inward. And it looks like that's what it's doing. A couple of them are folding inward. So I'm going to have to literally take a needle nose plier and sort of pry those prongs back a little bit. I just haven't realized it yet. Well, actually that one looks like it is spreading. I use the smaller one first, and then I use the bigger one to finish it up. That post is too long. I should have grinded off about 1/8 of an inch before I did this. But it'll still work. It'll just it won't look as nice as I would like. So you just smash it all the way down, get it nice and flat against the inside there. There you go. Doesn't look pretty, But the longer posts, that's kind of what you have to do if you don't grind the tip off. There's one done, and that's called a stud and a post, that part of it. And that'll go on first, and the lining will go over the top of it. So here we go, the next one. Same thing, I'm going to put the stud over the top of the post after inserting into the hole in the leather. And yeah, it's rolling on that one. That one I'm going to have to use a needle nose plier for, and bend the prong back a little bit to make sure it doesn't fold inward. You want them to fold outwards. That's kind of the point. Folding inward defeats the purpose of these prongs. Come on. I tried tweezers at first, and the tweezers just weren't strong enough to do it. So I had no choice. I had to use needle nose pliers. And I'm clamping the little prongs and just bending them back to make sure that the setter will push them the right direction. Part of the problem is these posts are made out of really good quality stainless steel, and they don't want to bend over. I mean, a really high quality setter, if I had one, would probably do the trick, but I just don't have the money for them. They're a little bit pricey. When you can buy a little kit for $10, the high grade one, you get one setter for 15, and you don't get the whole kit. So there you go. Those two buttons are done. Now is the time to go ahead and put in the liner first, if you're going to do a liner. You don't put the other buttons on until you actually put the lining in place. But if you're not going to do a lining, then go ahead and proceed to the next step of the buttons, and that's to put what they call the cap and the socket in place.